Alright, here's another video for the day, and it is ranking Luffy's post-time skip opponents. It's post-time skip enemies. There's 9 that I put on here, alright? And this is anime, right? So, as of right now, his post-time skip opponents, like, ranked from, like, how hard they were, and the hardest one being the strongest, most powerful one he fought against. Post-time skip. So, at number 9, I got Hody Jones. Hody Jones is a fishman, and the guy I got at number 8. See, that guy I have at number 8 is, you know, you could switch them around if you wanted to, but I think Hody Jones is just not smart enough to fight against him. And also, Hody Jones relies too much on steroids. Once that shit dies down, and I also think that the character above him has, you know, more endurance as well. Intelligence and endurance. That's why I have him as the weakest opponent. He fought him like first after the time skip to save Fishman Island from his headassery and his foolishness. His fucked up twisted ways of, you know, we have to kill everybody who doesn't see shit our way, who's like, so we don't agree with humans being alive, you know. We don't need them as slaves or anything. We'll eradicate them. We'll rule over them, but then we'll kill them. You know, they've done that shit to our people. You know, we'll do that here. We'll kill anybody who wants to have peace with the humans, and then we'll go up to the, you know. But then Luffy was like, no, we ain't gonna do that. You know, he fought him on the Noah, and he was like fucking the Noah up, and also fucking up Hody Jones. But like Luffy, and here's the thing, Luffy held back during this fight. Luffy had all kind of moves he could have pulled out on him. He did pull out a Red Hawk on this guy too. But he's at number 9. I got Hody Jones at number 9. I got Caesar Clown at number 8. You know, I said you could switch them around if you wanted to, but I just think Caesar's smarter and he has more endurance. Like he can think of a plan to fight this guy. You know, I can lower him to the surface, or you know, we're gonna fight on the surface. I'll stay away from the water. I can spread gas out, and this idiot ain't gonna know how to like combat the gas. You know, even if I poison him with my gas fruit, he's gonna go in the water. He's gonna die. You know, I know that Caesar Clown's more powerful than Hody Jones. Luffy, you know, ended up getting knocked out because he took the air out of his lungs. Then he was using gas. You know, he he created a plasma sword from gas particles, certain gas particles. He can use all kind of gas. It's like he's basically better. His Devil Fruit is better than Smoker's, and he was, you know, doing fucked up shit to children. That's why Luffy had to, you know, pack him too. And then he was taken by law to, you know, for ransom for Doflamingo, because he was the one helping create the Smile Devil Fruits. But Luffy defeated him, and he also like mid-diffed him on some real shit. Mid-diffed him because like Luffy was holding back during this fight. He still had, you know, moves in his bag that he didn't bring out during this fight. So he's at number 8, and then at number 7, I got Don Chinjao. Don Chinjao was a person that Garp fought back in the day. See, he's the leader of the Hapo Navy, and he had his treasure buried underground, and he used his little drill to like get to his treasure, and he was like, I'll put all my treasure down here, you know, and it was always down there, and like the ice would come back together, and he could always get in there because he had the drill in his head. However, one day Garp found him, and he was like, oh, you got treasure, man? You know, you can't be doing that, you know, I'll stop you, you know. They fought, and Don Chinjao's head, boom, his drill got, you know, placed inside of his head. It got crushed. It stayed inside of his head for a while. And he was mad at Garp, and he was like, curse Garp and his descendants, you know, I hate that guy. And you're Monkey D. Luffy, you're a pirate, and you're Garp's grandson, I hate you. You know, I'll fight you with everything I have. And he was doing pretty all right. And also, Conquer Hockey user as well. He uses Conquer Hockey. This old man does. That's how he was able to fight against Garp back in the day, and he also fought against Luffy. Luffy, you know, uses Devil Fruit, but, you know, not too much. You know, he did have to, but he didn't use all the moves he could have used. No. He would wait to use those moves, as he had to fight against some other people later on in that arc. And that's when that move came out. But I got, after Don Chinjao, he's at number 7. I have Cracker from Whole Cake Island. Cracker is one of Big Mom Charlotte Lillian's sweet commanders. He's sweet commander of the 3rd Division, I think. He's one of the weaker commanders. But he was giving Luffy some fucking fits. He was. First of all, Cracker had the home field advantage, right? You know, people might wonder why I have him at 6. I'm like, you know, he had the home field advantage. He had the force. He had the little creatures that could, like, transform into other people, like, working in his favor. And Luffy was thrown for a loop. But then he had the Cracker, the biscuit soldiers that he creates, you know, and then Luffy had to eat all those. And he had to resort to using a new tank man for him. Or a new form of Gear 4 to beat this guy. Because using Bounce Man wasn't enough. He kept creating these Cracker clones, and these Cracker clones, you know, were like a lot. So he was like, I'll eat all these, you know, crackers, these biscuits, and then I'll like blow up to like a big size and become a tank man. So then when Cracker, his real body attacked him, boom, he like, it's like he like got sucked inside of his stomach and then shot out like a catapult. Boom! And that's how Luffy defeated him. He was, you know, he had armament hockey. He wasn't a conqueror. He was effective at using his Devil Fruit, which is like the cracker fruit or the biscuit fruit. But I got him at number 6. At number 5, I have Rob Lucci. Rob Lucci at number 5. You know, and this came down to, this came later, you know, during Egghead. He was like, oh, what the hell was that picture in the Wanted poster? I want to see that. You know, and Kaku was like, yo, we don't have, you know, orders to attack Yonko. You know, he's like, but Rob Lucci's like, I fought this guy before. I want to see what the fuck's going on. And then Luffy was like, okay, you asked for it. You know, and this is the thing. Lucci had his own awakening too, but Gear 5 was just leagues above it. Leagues above it. He still had his durability factor, Rob Lucci did. He was getting thrown around and hit by Luffy, and he was just like, damn, like, this shit's ridiculous. He turned the whole fucking environment into rubber, and, you know, he was like understanding how, he was starting to understand how Luffy defeated Kaido. He was like, oh, fuck. You know, he might be actually like that now. I can't, you know, go toe-to-toe with him like I did back in the day. You know, and like be evenly matched with this guy. He's like above me now. Yeah, he was kind of upset about that. But I got him at number 5. And I got number 4, I got Doflamingo. Doflamingo is above all the rest of these guys because he's a Conqueror Hockey user. And not just that, a Devil Fruit Awakening user. He was the first person that Luffy came across after the time skip that forced him to go into Gear 4. He had Gear 4 the whole time. It ain't something that he learned there and right then and there. He already had that in his bag. He had used it in the training against Rayleigh during the time skip. During those 2 years, he acquired it. And then he was like, okay, if I have to come up against anybody around your level, I have to break it out. And he fought against Doflamingo, and then he found out about the Devil Fruit Awakening as well, which Gear 4 ain't a Devil Fruit Awakening, but it's like the steps. Basically, the gears are like steps for Luffy to awaken his Devil Fruit. That's how his Devil Fruit worked. But he fought against Doflamingo, who was trying to, destroy Dressrosa's kingdom after things got out. Oh, he's a tyrant. He's not. He's a guy who's a dictator. He took over King Riku's spot because he believed that he needs to rule over this place. He took people's families and destroyed the family. He destroyed, people's lives, just regular people's lives, took them if they didn't, he calls to what he had laid out, put them in the Coliseum as gladiators, took people and turned them into toys so people forgot about them. And then when they went back to their families, back to their loved ones, back to their friends, people were like, yo, who the fuck are you? You're just some toy, and then he enslaved the Tontadas, and Luffy was fighting to like free all of them. But like Doflamingo was really cracked out in a way, like he was kind of twisted, because he was like, I'll destroy all this shit now because you want to expose me for who I actually am. All right, it's all gonna come down then. And he was gonna destroy like Dressrosa. Even Admiral Fujitora could probably stop that birdcage, but he didn't want to kill the civilians. That's why he held back. Luffy was like, I can defeat Doflamingo. I have to use everything I have, though. I have to use Gear 4. And he had to go into Gear 4 twice against Doflamingo. He had to wait 10 minutes for his Haki to recover, and then he went into Gear 4 again. It was a kind of tough fight. I'll say it's high dips, almost extreme dips. That fight was. And then, number 3, I got Katakuri. I got Luffy versus Katakuri at number 3. Not as far as a fight goes, but like as far as opponent goes. Out of all the other opponents, he's just better than Doflamingo and everybody below Doflamingo. He has the Devil Fruit Awakening, right? But he's had it longer. He's the most powerful commander of the Big Mom Pirates. Essentially, he's the vice captain. If I had to say, Big Mom had a vice captain, it would be Katakuri. He had never lost a fight until he fought against Luffy. No one's ever put Katakuri on his back. That was the thing about him that was crazy. And another thing was, he has a Paramisa Devil Fruit called the Mochi Mochi Fruit, right? However, this guy has great observation haki, so he was able to see, I believe, 6 seconds into the future. And he showcased advanced future sight, or future sight observation haki, so he could see into the future. That was the thing with him. So he could confuse the opponent, like Luffy, into believing that his Devil Fruit was a Logia, when it actually wasn't. He was just seeing Luffy's attacks hit at certain times, and then he would like turn his body into Mochi real quick and like evade the attack. And this fight took a long time. In the anime, that shit was like drug out for a long time. A lot of episodes. I don't know how many episodes, but it was a lot. And he had to evolve to Snake Man. He had to go into Gear 4, get out of Gear 4. He had to, run away from Katakuri. He got poisoned by Katakuri's sister. Katakuri, out of, honoring the fight, he, cut himself too. He stabbed himself with his little trident that he had. And he was like, well, that bitch shouldn't have, that little bitch shouldn't have fucked around with our fight. I kind of feel like I need to be on your level as far as, or be in the same condition you are. I understand that you got hit by poison and stuff, and you don't understand how that fucking happened. But now we're gonna actually fight, and they did. And that one was like one of Luffy's best fights. I have it in the, best fights of Luffy, top 10 fights he was in. Katakuri, pushed Luffy to greater heights in his observation haki, but not just that, with his Devil Fruit prowess. Yeah. With his Devil Fruit prowess, he he got that gear for Snake Man. So the Charlotte family really helped Luffy, elevate his gear so he could then later on do other shit in Wano. Everybody knows what I'm about to say towards that. But that was his third opponent that was, or after the time skip, that was like really powerful. But he overcame him and he got Sanji and he escaped with this crew member. Now, number 2, I have Kizaru, the Light Admiral. See, pre-time skip, Kizaru was called to Sabaody because Luffy had done what he did, right? Hit the Celestial Dragon. That's a no-go. You don't fucking touch them and other things. Yeah, we know already. The gods will, cast judgment on you and all that extra stuff. Luffy didn't give a fuck, but then he, Rayleigh was there, though, to protect them at that point. And Luffy knew that he had no chance back then. But on Egghead Day, he was like, Egghead Day came and they were on Egghead together. Kizaru pulled up to the island. He destroyed Sentomaru, but then he was right there. Luffy was like, okay, we are not the same as we were 2 years ago. We're actually way better than that. He came up to him in base form, but he was emitting haki so he could slow down Kizaru. This is what I know about Kizaru, personally as an anime or a One Piece fan. When you emit a certain level of advanced conqueror's haki, you can, in a way, negate the devil fruit ability, or psychologically, fuck with somebody who has less, advanced conqueror's haki than you into thinking that they're weaker. So then, within themselves, they're like, oh fuck, that's how he was able to rush up on Kizaru. That's why, in that movie, Shanks was able to rush up on Kizaru because of his output of conqueror's haki. It was a psychological trick. Because I already know that Kizaru's the fastest person in One Piece, but other people might not see that. And he was fighting against Kizaru, and he had to break out Gear 5, of course, because this is an admiral. These admirals are not weak. I know the rule that I go by. 2 admirals can take down a Yonko, but 1-on-1, man, you're probably gonna lose to the Yonko unless it's buggy. That's what I know. You better be at 100% health bars and ready to fight. But Luffy was fighting against Kizaru. Kizaru used light clones and other things. He was like, oh shit, but he has Gear 5. He was getting hit by Kizaru's light attacks and other things, but he was doing this thing. He hit him with a star gun to the head. Boom. That hurt Kizaru a lot. That fucking had it rattled. Almost concussed. He was concussed. Luffy, got out of, Gear 5, but, he won that fight. I give it to Luffy, he won that. Even if they were, because some people claim that Kizaru wasn't fighting all out. I don't necessarily believe that. I don't think he used all of his, moves that he could have possibly used, but I also know Luffy didn't either, because he wasn't trying to, they ain't trying to destroy the island necessarily because there's technology there and other stuff, so they're both kind of holding back, if you ask me. But I still got Kizaru at number 2 as far as Luffy's opponents after the time skip. And then at number 1, of course, I got Kaido, King of the Beasts. This shit was, Wano is full of losses for Luffy as it comes to Kaido, right? So when he came to Wano, he was like, okay, we're going to fight against Kaido and we're going to defeat him and other things, but he didn't quite understand what the fuck he was up against. So he had to, Kaido was drunk and he shot a blast over towards the Straw Hats. He thought that his crew was destroyed, that he had killed them. So he ran up on him in a fit of rage. And he was fighting in his dragon form drunk. Luffy learned some things. He learned that Kaido was pretty fucking durable. He learned that Kaido had the dragon forms and that also his Conqueror's Haki was pretty powerful too. Actually, at that point, it was more powerful than Luffy's. Luffy hit him with the not a badgering gun, but a King Kong gun to the head to smash his head. But then that was it. Luffy got knocked out of Gear 4. He did that in base form, though. Luffy did that in base form, where he, hit him in the head. But he went into Gear 4 and he was bouncing, boom, 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 boom. Kaido hit him with the Thunder Bottle and knocked him out of Gear 4. Then took him to Udon Prison. In Udon Prison, he learned how to use Ryo Haki, so where he could hit the opponent without actually touching them. It's more using your aura to penetrate them, and that does damage too. And then he learned Conqueror's coding as well, which allows internal damage too. He learned all this by fighting against Kaido, on the rooftop. Fighting him on the rooftop, he was fighting them with everybody else, Kid, Law, Zoro, and Killer. They were there for that. Then they all left, and he was fighting against Kaido again in base form. He was staying in base form for a while. Then, Kaido was caught him off the rooftop in his hybrid form. Hit Luffy off the fucking, Onigashima, and he fell into the water. The Heart Pirates luckily had a submarine and got Luffy out of the water. And then Momonosuke grew up because the ripe fruit. When he did that, shit went cooler for the main cast. They thought they had a chance because Luffy was back. So he went up and he was fighting against Kaido again. Doom, doom, doom. He was hitting him in base form. Then he was like, okay, I have to use Bounce Man, Snake Man, Gear 3rd, everything he had basically. Not Tank Man, but he was using all the other forms he had in Future Sight and Ryo Haki and Conqueror's Code Haki and splitting the sky with Kaido. But that all was still for naught. He ended up dying during that fight. And he was dead for a little bit. However, the awakening happened. The Warrior of Liberation, Joy Boy, his Devil Fruit started waking up. And it come to find out that his Devil Fruits, the Hito no Mi model Sun God Nika, or human fruit model Sun God Nika, not the rubber fruit. But Luffy always knew it to be the Gum fruit, so he's still calling his moves Gum this, Gum that, Gum lightning, Gum, air balloon, Gum, jump rope. He's turning Kaido into rubber and throwing him around and playing with him like he's he's a toy. Kaido was still there. He could have still beat Luffy, as Luffy was inexperienced in this form. But it was kind of, written and it was prophesized that, he would actually have to lose. So Kaido had to lose, and he lost with the badgering gun to the face, Luffy packed him up, and according to whatever, some people think he's dead, but some people think he's alive. I'm going to say that Kaido is probably just gone. He won't come back to the story. I don't know if he's dead or alive. He's just gone. He won't ever be seen again. Because Luffy made sure of that. Knocking him down into the lava and everything else. But he was Luffy's hardest opponent. Like I said, he took 3 L's to Kaido before he actually learned Gear 5, or awakened Gear 5, and was able to, get the edge over on him. So that is the Luffy opponents post Timeskip, ranked by power, who's the most powerful. So at 9 I have Hody Jones, 8 I have Silver the Clown, at 7 I got Don Chinjao, I got 6 I got Katakuri, at 5 I got Lucci, at 4 I got Doflamingo, at 3 I got Katakuri, and at 2 I got Kizaru, and number 1 is of course Kaido. And that is that. Stay cool, calm, corner. And let me know what you think in the comments. Leave them. Leave some comments finally, y'all. You gotta leave some comments for me.